What's up, ladies and gents? You know what time of day it is. It's XCN time, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about XCN. We're going to be discussing what we're seeing here on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for XCN over the coming days and weeks, as well as my targets for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to have you all here. So we're going to be diving straight into this video. We're going to start off with the shorter term here for XCN and then move on to those 2025 targets. Of course, right now we've seen the whole market consolidating just a little bit. You can see in the top right that the majority of the market is red today, but that is because in 2 hours time we have something very, very special that's going to make quite a big of an impact into the market. Of course, if it is good news, then what we could see here on XCN in the shorter term is, in my opinion, a pretty decent pump to about the 0.017 area. And of course, that news that we are going to be seeing tonight at 7 p.m. my time, so 2 p.m. Eastern time, is that Fed interest rate decision. Now, this one is probably the most pivotal one that we've seen so far, because for the first time since last year, we are predicted to get a rate cut. So right now, we are sitting at a 4.5% interest rate, but as you can see from the forecast and the consensus, they predict that we're going to see a bit of a drop. Now, of course, when interest rates are lowered, it creates a more risk-on environment, and of course, crypto is a risky asset. So crypto in general is going to benefit when we see this interest rate drop. Now, the interesting thing comes from what this actual figure is going to be when it comes out at 7 p.m. tonight, so in about 2 hours as of recording from this video. Now, if we see that 4.25%, I do expect there to be a little bit of a pump here on XCN, maybe not a huge one to begin with, but I do think that immediately we could see prices kind of jet up to about at least this resistance area at 0.013. Of course, if we can get beyond that, like I say, I do think that we could hit 0.017 in the shorter term. Now, that becomes more likely if we see a larger rate drop. So with the forecast at 4.25%, if instead we see 4%, that would be extremely bullish for us here on XCN in the shorter term. I do think that we could see an even larger pump. Now, of course, there is a small likelihood as well that we could see the interest rates unchanged. Of course, Polymarket puts that at about 2% right now. So if we see this figure at 4.5%, then that would be very bearish for the markets. And of course, here for XCN, we do have this long-term support right now on XCN. If we do see a 4.5% print, it could push the prices down below this support line. So of course, keep your eyes peeled for what this interest rate decision is. Depending on what the outcome is, will depend on how the market reacts. Of course, half an hour after that interest rate decision, we also have the Fed press conference. Now, basically the tone of this conference will move the markets a lot. So if we see quite a dovish stance from the Fed, so basically bullish, that's going to be very good for the markets. If the Fed is sounding more concerned, if they bring up inflation and tariffs and stuff a lot of times, that is going to be quite bearish for the markets in general. So the tone of that meeting half an hour after the interest rate decision will also have a play in how the market goes. So of course, if you guys want to get $10 completely free to buy some XCN before we see any potential pump here from that Fed meeting, then don't forget to check out that MEXC exchange. As you can see on the screen, they're giving every new user who signs up using the link in the description down below $10 to get started. Now, of course, this exchange does not require KYC. The only thing you need to do to get that money is to deposit some fiat or crypto into your MEXC exchange, and then they'll give you that $10 straight away. So like I say, you can use it to buy some XCN, or you can use it to long or short XCN with up to 20 times leverage. Again, link for this is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Let's get back into this video. So here in the shorter term, this is the technical picture that we are seeing here on XCN. Of course, since our previous video, we did see a nice little pump here, but of course we got to a major resistance and we have been rejected. But the good news is, if we also have a look at our long-term fibs, you can see that right now we are testing this fib here, this 0.5 fib, as a massive support level. So we've already got this support resistance flip. All we need to do now is wait for that Fed interest rate meeting. Like I say, in the shorter term, we could see a decent little pump back up to 0.013. Of course, if things get more bullish here for XCN, then we have another important fib level at 0.015. Beyond that, we have a major resistance here on XCN that looks a little bit like this, which is why I mentioned the 0.017 price target earlier, because right now this upper resistance sits at about the 0.017 level. So if we have a look at the slightly longer term now here for XCN, we can see that things, in my opinion, are still looking good for XCN. We are consolidating in a triangle that looks a little bit like this. If we have a look at the 1-day MACD, we have bullish momentum on our side, so that's good for a potential shorter term pump here on XCN. Of course, this long-term triangle that we are seeing here on XCN is something that, if we do break out to the upside from, could mean that we get quite a big price target here on XCN. Now, of course, the price target stemming from this triangle that you see here on the screen is the distance between the first test of support to the first test of resistance. And if we drag this measuring tool to wherever we could get a breakout here on XCN, you can see that we get about a 259% pump wherever we see that breakout. Now, of course, from where the prices currently stand, we're looking at closer to a 430% upside. So that's basically a 5x if we do indeed see this triangle breakout to the upside. So of course, this is one of the larger, longer term patterns that we are watching out for here on XCN. You can see that the deadline for this pattern is at the end of 2025. That is essentially when XCN has to make its mind up about what it wants to do. Sorry, not the end of 2025, the end of November 2025. Of course, going into the next few months, we also have a bullish bias because Q4 is generally a great month for crypto, particularly in a bull market year. So 2025, 2021, 2017, all bull market years. So we are bullishly biased going into Q4. So as you guys can see, what we could potentially see here on XCN is a scenario like this, where we see the prices consolidate a little bit more like this in the longer term. But of course, at some point, we do expect there to be a breakout. Remember, breakouts do happen quite quickly here in crypto in general. Of course, a moment we broke out at the start of January 2025, there was no stopping XCN. You can see it just jetted straight up. So we could see a similar scenario once we break out of this triangle pattern. Now, there's plenty of other reasons, in my opinion, as well, to be bullish here for XCN over the coming weeks and months. Some of them include the fact that if we have a look at the total free market cap, we've got this beautiful ascending triangle pattern. Right now, we are right by the resistance. This Fed interest rate decision could be this trigger that pulls the market cap above this upper resistance line. Once that happens, we can treat this as a triangle breakout. And of course, the market cap target for that sits at about $4 trillion. So that's basically telling us that the total crypto market cap, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, is going to go from about $1 trillion to $4 trillion. So of course, that's about a 4x on average throughout crypto. Now, of course, there's other things as well to be bullish about. If we have a look at Ethereum, for example, this is important for us because it's the largest altcoin. What we've seen here on Ethereum has been a multi-year triangle. We have broken out to the upside from this triangle pattern already, and we are just pausing right above the resistance. And I do think that we are going to get a resumption of this uptrend at some point here on Ethereum. Of course, the price target from this triangle is multiple 5 figures here for Ethereum. So of course, when Ethereum makes that move, that's also going to be very bullish for other altcoins like XCN. So Just two examples there of why I think the markets are still going to be moving higher. Of course, all eyes, like I say, are going to be on the Fed interest rate decision. Of course, some other price targets that I've been monitoring here on XCN as well are ones that fall along these fib levels. Now, these fib levels have been tested multiple times as supports and resistances. That's why we use them, because at the end of the day, when XCN comes to make new highs past 0.05, we can use these fib levels as places where we could expect to find some resistance. So the first fib level past the previous high there is this 1.272 fib that tells us we could see 11 cents, 0.11 here on XCN. The next one here is this 1.414 fib that tells us we could see 0.17. That's also the previous all-time high here for XCN. So this marks an important price target for me. If we can make new all-time highs this bull run, then I expect the big target there at 1.618 to be hit at 0.32. So these two upper price targets are my targets for XCN in 2025. Like I say, we have still got a bit of a journey to get up to these upper price targets, but don't underestimate things once XCN turns bullish again. Of course, for the best possible chance of reaching these upper price targets, what we really want to see from the market are these two values giving us values as close to 100 as possible. So right now for the Fiat and Greed Index, we are at 51, and for the altcoin season index, we are surprisingly at 71, which is pretty close to an altcoin season. Now, the reason we've seen this creep up from about 20 to 71 over the past few months is the fact that we're seeing Ethereum and other large cap altcoins outperform Bitcoin. So that's helped push this indicator up. Of course, what we need to see are both of these indicators ideally above 80 for the best possible chance of XCN hitting these 5x's, 10x's, even 20x's in the shortest space of time. So that's basically how I'm monitoring the crypto market at a glance. Obviously, right now we are in the middle of the Fiat and Greed Index, which tells me we are still early in this cycle. Of course, as this indicator gets above 80 and nears into 100, that could tell us that we are near a market top in crypto. Thankfully, we are nowhere near that point just yet. So I do think there's plenty of fun ahead of us to be had here in crypto. Of course, those are my thoughts here for XCN, and it pretty much summarizes what I wanted to say for this video. Of course, thank you guys so much for watching. Do let me know down in the comments if you are still holding your XCN. If you are, what do you expect from this interest rate decision? Do you think it's going to be the same as what is forecasted? Do you think we're going to get a surprise? Let me know down in the comments. Always love to hear from you guys. Thanks once again, and I'll see you in the next video.